great.
I'm still like it from the age of Frankenstein and Dracula were the
Yeah.
popular ones.
Yeah.
So did you think it was good, Vicky?
I loved it because, yes, I thought it was very clever, yeah,
I guess.
and it was very visual, and I thought it told an interesting story about relationships between men and women, so.
Well, right, I mean, nothing
Well-
wrong.
So we're gonna open with reviews, everybody, reviews of the most recently seen movie. Thumbs up or thumbs down. So let's give a review to the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve them.
I just have a couple
Okay.
spelling things.
Yeah.
Item 3, discussion of Solaire.
Oh, God.
So,
You know, I, for some reason, always wanna put an E on the end, I don't know
Look at what
why.
they've done to my car.
It's the French, it's the French.
And then on
spelling.
steep slopes, the second sentence, circumstances, systems, maybe with.
Yep.
I wasn't here, but it seemed like that might be
Yep.
used, that's all.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, so,
I'll still make a motion to adopt them as amended.
a second,
Second.
Rich, the other Rich, seconds. All those in favor? All those opposed?
I'm abstaining
Because I was
because
only here
I'm
for
here.
half the meeting.
Oh, but that was the best half.
Yeah,
Oh, you were on vacay, that's right.
I was in the
All right,
Antarctica.
so how,
Then I had to
it's,
leave.
all of those who voted were for. Okay, so we, I heard from Rich Brown, and I heard from Hebe, who, and I think it's a good idea, wanna discuss, well, you had various things, you can just go down your list, but the general theme was how are we going to,
Get people
get the
to,
word out and keep the word out?
well, David's email, I got that,
Well, and I think,
I like that.
I think that there's no shame in sending a second email, and
I
maybe,
won't be
you know,
ashamed.
I don't remember what I said. What did I say, John? I'll look it up.
You-
But I was going to.
You had a number of items on,
Resend just a reminder email as we get towards
yeah,
The
So-
10th,
the 10th.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't remind people too much. I mean,
And then,
forget,
I was also gonna just pop something on news and announcements on the website.
that's great.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, exactly, and, the automatic notification
Yes,
system. that
that's
was
the-
another-
a news-
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's the news
Okay.
and announcements.
Can you be sure to include the link in case they've lost their paper copies?
Yep.
Yeah, great. I thought your little notice was just perfect.
It was just right, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, well, John wrote it, so that's why it was perfect.
Nicely done.
I just copied and pasted.
Right.
I wonder, I don't know if it's appropriate, but what if, could it go on the CCL email?
that's a good idea.
I mean, that comes, that's
There-
constant, and people read
Yeah,
that.
no, but people get, you know.
Well,
Tired.
Thing is, CCL, they just typically just go out on listserv, I believe.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
Put it on
and I'm
their
gonna,
listserv.
I already sent one out, and I'm gonna send another one out
To
on
them.
listserv, so
Oh,
it's the same,
Group.
it's going to the same audience.
yeah, okay. But it won't be on the CCL and their actual
Website.
email, right? That they send out every week, I think.
Right, but they send that out on listserv.
Tim?
Right, on listserv,
mhm.
but it won't be on theirs.
No, it won't be on there.
Separate. Because that's what I was wondering, because a lot of people, I think a lot of people read that CCL thing, but anyway.
Well, it's long, so ours would be our thing would be at the bottom, and for those that scroll all the way through, they might then, I think just at one, whose sole purpose is to remind people is
A
more
separate
effective.
email.
I guess,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
separate,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, if somebody wanted
Because
to.
a lot
It's
of,
a good idea.
I know a lot of people go through all their emails and they just delete everything, you know,
Mhm,
so.
including the CCL.
Well, but maybe they, that's what my point, maybe they wouldn't delete the CCL, but they
Oh,
delete
okay.
it.
No, I
That's
mean,
what I was trying to say.
what I thought you were gonna say was, you know, to hand out surveys at the Common on Saturday, cause CCL's doing that wellness thing.
No, I don't think, like, handing out copies, you know, I mean,
Okay,
I don't
all right,
think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Here, where are you from? I'm from Georgia, you know, no.
Okay,
Okay, so we've got another, you're gonna do another mailing on the third, I think you said?
Yeah, you just, yeah,
To the listserv.
yeah.
And then the town notification system, that's great. The other thing that I said is putting up posters, what would that mean? I said town offices and the library, the school, and then retail locations like the banks, Lyme Country Store and Hardware Store. Is that,
Well, what would the posters be?
what would they say? Right, I mean,
Don't forget to
Don't forget.
fill out your.
get your stuff in one sock.
Well, you know, if the planning board did a bake sale, put that on the poster,
There you go.
and we go together.
Mhm. We could have a bake sale on the 30th there, which is a lot like Friday, Saturday. Yeah,
Just
okay.
give it yard.
Thank you, no, that's fine, that's fine. Do we think that's enough?
I think it's okay.
You mean with posters too or not?
Well, I mean,
I mean, I think posters would be fine.
Well, who's gonna
I mean,
do
somebody has
it?
to make 'em
Who's
up.
gonna make the posters?
yeah, right, I mean, that's it. Who's gonna make them? Do we need to have us decide on it as a group?
Well, yeah, I think.
No.
No, I think
And-
John should have editorial responsibility and,
I
you know,
don't, I
it
don't
doesn't-
wanna, I don't wanna do a
you don't
poster.
wanna do that,
Yeah.
you don't?
Yeah.
No, editorial
Oh,
responsibility.
editorial, fine.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Could-
but what-
Could it
what
say, get your solar survey in, you know, and then
Yeah, don't forget
these
to-
locations, yeah, I mean,
So where would we put it?
all it needs to be done is put on like, copy paper that's colored,
Right,
or
so who's gonna do that?
a color, do you have colors here?
I have colors.
Yeah, so if it, you know, cause you can get like a frame, you know, from just Word, and you have the frame, and then you just
But
put
who's
the-
gonna do
It's
this?
like a wanted poster,
Yeah.
wanted,
Yeah,
your solar survey,
picture of a
Right.
cowboy.
yeah,
Um,
or Uncle Sam.
or Uncle oh, yeah, yeah. Very good, Uncle Sam wants you. Who's gonna do this? Usually the person who suggests it is responsible. You wanna give it a shot? No.
I'm up to my elbows right now in another project,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, so you'll pass.
So I will pass.
All right, I will pass.
I think the email is, if there's an email from David and then our,
Yeah, I think it's
is the
adequate.
chair allowed to put something on the listserv?
Sure, it's not on the listserv.
No, but well, I mean,
You have to be, you have to be part of listserv to post a listserv. So,
But you put something on the list, right?
Yeah, right?
just send it to me, I'll put it on listserv.
Okay,
It's
so-
not that,
Yeah.
but who's going to do it? I'll
Okay, so-
send it to you, but somebody's gotta write it and prepare it, which I don't wanna do.
This is the poster we're still talking
Yeah,
about?
I think so,
Who wants a
aren't we?
poster? Who wants a poster?
I'm-
Everybody who wants a poster, raise their hand.
My feeling is it would be great if somebody wanted to do
So,
it.
okay, so raise your hand because you're in favor of a poster. Who thinks a poster is a bad idea? Whether you, no, assuming somebody.
I don't think it's a bad idea.
Okay. Nobody
Not
thinks it's a bad idea.
No.
Okay,
I
I will,
think,
I will,
I think it's a good idea.
I will make a poster and send it to John, and John's gonna edit it and then can send it to
Okay.
David to run it off so that it's on colored
And who's
paper.
gonna put it, who's gonna take it around?
If David says that it's ready, I can come over and pick it up and I will hang it around town,
Okay.
okay?
I can definitely put it at the town offices.
Okay.
You know
Sure.
what, put it right in the return box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Inside?
Inside.
Inside, yeah, right? Yeah.
Okay, so poster.
Okay, Vicky is doing the poster.
And
Which, by the way, where, if somebody comes to the town office, where are they depositing?
Right here.
There's a
There's
box
a desk.
on the desk out there, but I figured if people couldn't find the box that says, you know,
Says the box.
Solar
well, it says
serve.
planning board surveys or something like that,
Mhm.
solar survey return or something like that, it says it right there on the box. They're gonna ask somebody, and everybody in the town offices knows to point them at the box.
Yeah.
So that box is inside, right?
Yes.
So is that outside door locked a lot of the time?
The outside door, well, the entryway is always open,
Right.
but where the box is locked, when no one's here.
But it's always open when, because it used to be you had to push a button to get that door open to go inside.
Well, that was up during COVID, and,
Oh, okay.
only when, there's nobody here, or I should say Tuesdays and Thursdays when we're closed to the public.
So
So,
I think it's a good idea if, once we get a small pile, that you take the small pile and put it in your office.
oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And so that they're not.
well, we have a
vandalized.
small pile, we have
We do
four.
have a small pile. And so where can you drop off your survey?
I believe the library has a box.
Yeah, and I heard from Hebe that she checked in with Judy, and Judy is gonna have the box, and she
Okay,
reminded
so
me.
there's one at the library and one here
Yeah.
for hard copy, and then otherwise you do it online.
Yeah, or you can mail it back,
Or
because
mail it,
it's an
okay.
envelope.
Mhm.
Okay, yep, I just gave in my survey,
And
so I
one of
don't
them
have any more information.
Did come in the mail today.
Great.
Excellent.
Um,
All right, so,
All right, I'm making a poster,
Okay,
and
thank
I'll
you.
get it to you.
okay,
And should I send it to you so you can send it to him, or can I just send it to him?
You can send it to John, that's,
why don't you send it to both of us?
No, I want you to edit it,
Oh,
so that
and
we
then
only have
send-
one version
Okay,
going.
so I'm gonna
to
get
David.
the unabrogated.
Right, yes,
because you're not gonna reply to her, so that's not,
yep.
All
And I
right.
didn't reply to Hebe when she sent that thing out, because
No,
we're
no,
not
she,
supposed to talk.
she should have just sent that to
David.
David,
Yeah,
or David and me, but
yeah.
anyway,
Okay, so
Nobody
we've got
replies, which
emails,
is
we
good.
got the poster, is there anything else we need to do? anything else
you
on
can
your-
tell your friends and neighbors.
Yeah, right. Yes, you are allowed to do that.
Of course.
Well, actually, the New Hampshire Municipal Association was, like, in one of those workshops, was very clear. You can always talk to your constituents.
Right,
It's just us guys.
right,
Yeah.
we're
Can't talk
the
outside.
problem.
Right, we're the problem.
but I encourage you to talk to your constituents, because
Yeah.
that's when how you find stuff out, what they're
That's
interested
right,
in.
that's right.
Right.
But you don't talk about pending cases with your
Oh,
constituents.
clearly not, right.
And, so this type of thing, yes, you talk about. All right,
So, all right,
I'm completely content with that, thank you.
you're welcome. So, all right, we've done that. Last time with the people here, we discussed what about the, what did we discuss?
compilations,
The wetland steep slope, shoreline.
Oh,
Can I just go back one more,
That's
I have one more thing to say about the survey, just to keep everyone, knowledge. Printing costs was just about $750, mailing cost was about $250. And you throw it in my time, you're gonna add another almost $200 of
Pretty expensive.
labor, so you're looking at about $1,200 for sending out a survey.
Well, once every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, that's what I did, but,
Yeah, well, that's what you had estimated, I think.
Yeah.
well, that's what planning boards do,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, that's our job.
Yeah, so I don't, I think it's a bargain if we get some response.
Yeah.
no, and I'm not,
It's
Well,
information.
we're not-
information,
There's
Yeah.
no complaint here, it's just a fact.
right, and so, you know,
That sounds
as,
like Dragnet, just the
and-
facts, man.
as we're moving into budget season,
Mhm.
if the board wants to budget, cause I basically have to find that $1,000 in my
Right.
budget, which there's not a whole lot of.
And you can't find it in our budget because we don't have one.
Right, well, that's why I'm bringing up that it's something to consider if there's something you think coming in the next year that you may want. Tell me, and I can add,
I think you
I
should do-
imagine that with the housing,
Yeah,
if we're gonna be doing that housing thing,
There'll be another
that's gonna
survey.
be a survey.
yeah, so another.
perfect, so I can add that into my budget and
Yep.
say,
And I would allow for inflation, so I'd say 1,500,
that is exactly the number I was writing
So-
down.
yep.
Yeah. Okay, so, we are here together, gathered here together. What do people wanna do? This is one of those rare instances where we have already covered our agenda.
Okay, well, what was the date when we're gonna compile this? When are we gonna compile, when we get all the,
At the next meeting,
is that just at the next meeting, like our regular meeting?
that's what we said,
Okay, so that's the October, like,
12th,
12th,
yeah,
and they're due the 10th.
yeah.
okay, great, okay.
And the reason I said the 10th is because Columbus Day is the 9th, and
I think that was a good idea.
So we're not gonna have a special meeting, we'll just.
No, okay, good,
do it.
Yeah, and we may have to have extra meetings, but we'll see
yeah.
how that develops.
Right.
Because
So-
once we get this stuff, we're gonna have to write it, and you know how easy that is.
Right, well, no, we've got good ideas.
Okay, so,
It's okay if we don't have anything else.
No,
to
no,
do.
I mean, we can go home, I have no
Do-
problem with that.
So, going back to the budget,
Yeah.
this is the last time we're gonna get together in September. Budget magic starts happening real soon. Are
You're
there?
still on the committee?
I am on the budget committee.
Okay, good.
yes. Are there other things we wanna plan for? I mean, I'm gonna ask the question, should we consider budgeting to have a consultant come in and help us think about housing? I mean, I think they could help us think about a survey, instead of us spending 3 meetings thinking about it. If we pick the right people,
There you go, if we pick the
you know,
right
It
picking
would
the
still
right
be
people, they
3
will have
meetings.
done it, and they'll have a bunch of ideas to do that.
I think we should ask the regional planning commission to help us, and,
Mhm.
if anything, and, but I'll
Or
tell you, I've
survey.
been working with some very expensive consultants, and so,
Not valuable,
not,
not good
It-
value for money?
no,
Okay,
no,
all right.
I
and,
think it's very funny, the last time we had consultants was with the, Community Development
Yes.
Committee.
Mhm.
right,
And, I found it very interesting that their presentation was almost verbatim what I told them.
So there's our consultant.
Well, no, it's just,
No,
it was,
you know, the point about, in that instance, I think, we had to have a consultant because, it was a controversial,
yeah.
topic in town, and we needed a theoretically disinterested party.
I don't think we need to have anybody else tell us that there's a housing crisis and that we need to have more housing, so, I mean, which is what they're gonna say, and,
I think the big thing is
You know, the
finding out
keys
from
to
the
the valley.
town what the town
What the
wants
town
for
wants.
additional
Right.
housing.
right,
So,
So,
I guess as I'm thinking about your suggestion, Rich,
Mhm.
I would say that, well, you're talking about it because of the budget committee, so
Right.
I can't really take it from that point of view, but in terms of the planning board, I think we should get started, and if we, along the road, come to the feeling like, you know what, a consultant would be really helpful, we can consider it, but, we should start off and sort of get our bearings before that.
as
Mhm.
far,
But,
as far as help with a survey, isn't there somebody, is it Sheriff? Is there somebody in town who's does
Yeah,
this
Kathy
specialized?
Sherrod, but she's.
Is it Kathy or is it her husband?
they both
They
do.
both, but she's
She's kinda laid up in her
she's
husband.
laid up, yeah.
But anyway, that, yeah, I mean, if we're gonna do a survey, that might be worth talking, if they help us, yeah.
so, just strictly from the budgetary standpoint, even if we do rely on the RPC, they had money. The last time we worked with them for the build-out analysis, they charged us some money to do that. Is it worth?
For that,
Right,
the in-town bill, yeah.
Olivia,
Yeah, yeah,
whatever her
yeah.
last
I
name
mean,
was.
for the count, we did the whole count.
Yeah, we did the
Yeah,
count,
exactly.
yeah.
And they did some work, they did a bunch of work, made nice pictures and all. Is it worth budgeting? You know, is this the only time we're gonna get to budget money?
Would
for
you,
the next 12
are
months?
you asking this so that at the meeting, you could say the
No,
planning
it's
board?
gonna have to come from my,
It come from David.
so I would put it in my budget, and then it would go through the select board
So-
and the budget committee.
Um, why not? Well, let me back up for a second, you know, like the example of the RPC
Right.
with it. They did some work and it was a very, detailed in a certain way,
Mhm.
but going back to what Vicky said, it was
Didn't help us.
Not helpful.
not really helpful.
Right.
Per dollar, payback per dollar was not
Mhm.
great. So that's that, but I mean, if you wanna, if we wanna say to David, it's likely we're gonna be having, some input, or we're gonna be doing a survey, well, we just said you know, it's
Yeah, I've had it, I will
$1,500.
I have no problem saying, let's put $1,500 in
Yeah,
for a.
and the other thing is,
Mhm.
if we find that, you know, the 1,500 was the bare minimum, and we're gonna, after all, we're gonna want some more input or whatever,
Mhm.
we will ask for it, and if the town refuses to give it to us, we'll tell people in town who are
Put a
interested.
note out on the
They
list.
won't, they won't give us any money.
So, okay, I think for the survey, that's fine. I would hate for us to get a survey together, send it out, get a bunch of questions from, responses from town, get a bunch, and suddenly queue up a bunch of questions and say, geez, there must be somebody in the state of New Hampshire that just knows the answers to these questions. And if we found ourselves 6 months from now, wishing that we could hire somebody and there's no budget.
Well, I think
Then-
we would get the money, and just as you said it, but we get this feedback, and when we look at the feedback, we go, oh, this suggests a particular group or person that would help. I think that's the time to do it.
But do
because
we
don't know
wanna,
that.
do we wanna request the
I
money?
have no money,
No.
I have no money to give the board.
Right.
I have no problem with the, you know, the board can,
I mean,
all they can do is say no. You know.
well, I'm.
Let's ask for,
But that,
I think to Rich's point, I think the town budgets these things, and so it will put us into the next budget year before we can ask for money
yeah.
to really be able to do anything.
Except that every time this has happened, we've never had any money. Because they don't give us money.
Well, but
And
we'll
then we
that-
ask them for the money and they give us
They
the money.
magically find
Yeah,
a
they
little
find
bit of
it.
money.
But you know, so, I mean, that's fine with me. Let's,
Yeah, so
we
I'll
have
throw
1,500 and
And
say
I would say
2,500.
I was gonna say 5,000 for.
Wow,
we don't have to
you're more
spend it.
ambitious.
You know, and I know somebody on the budget committee.
well, if we don't use it, and it just stays there till the next year,
Goes
we
into
start over
a
again.
fund balance and it offsets taxes for the next year
So then,
Right,
if it's
I don't,
appropriated.
I don't have a problem with asking for a bunch of money.
yeah, I mean, and as I say, I'm not aching to spend it, I just don't wanna be in a position where, you know.
We're hamstrung because we
we're-
don't have
We're
funds.
hamstrung, yes. So,
Well, if anybody thinks that there's like a person who's gonna tell us what the silver bullet is, that's not happening, and, you know, there's been so much work done around the state, the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority has done a ton of, they put out stuff, you can look at their findings for the statewide trends, and the
Yeah.
RPC is.
I mean,
done a lot of
essentially,
work
what
for
I
Sun
imagine
Valley, so-
that people would tell us is
already
available.
done. Yeah, that's just what I was gonna say, Vicky, that most of what we would need would probably be statistics, and they're all
We don't-
there, we could just pull,
Yeah,
yeah.
Well,
yeah,
okay.
and it's a matter of like how tolerant is the town going to be to, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are for Lyme. In Hanover, it's like Hanover's supposed to have 800 more units between 2020 and 2040. So that number is probably way smaller for Lyme, but, okay, so if we took that and said, you know, how are we gonna fit 125 units in this community between, you know, by 2040, how's that gonna happen?
Who says that, who says that
They looked
Hanover
at
has
the,
that?
they looked at the regional, it's the regional housing assessment, plus Hanover hired Opticos, which is the company that, or the people that developed the concept of missing middle housing. So, you know, middle cost and middle size, so not single family and not a huge apartment, but it's like the fourplexes and the sixplexes, that kind of thing.
Well, right, cause they know what this whole state needs, and they probably
Right.
just divide it up among towns.
That's what they do.
They do.
So they have to
Yep,
figure out.
so, you know, we look at what our housing, you know, what the regional housing assessment says we should be producing, and it's like, well, how are we gonna do that? And, I mean, it's a kind of a, I mean, it's a very complex question, but it's also pretty simple.
Right.
You know, where are we gonna put 120 houses? Yeah, it's probably about that.
Well, the real problem is who's gonna build them.
Well,
And make
okay,
money,
where
yeah.
would we put them that's our
Well, that's a
problem.
start, yeah.
And who builds them is a different thing, but, you know, where would they go? So that's our problem.
Where would we allow them? I mean, is,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
So,
and-
these are exactly the policy questions we have to figure out, Vicki. I'd like to talk a little bit about the money, and Mr. Chair, I would move that we all ask the town to appropriate $1,500 for a housing survey this next year, and also $5,000 that we could use for the business of the planning board. That's,
Okay, so I'm gonna vote, have two separate votes on that.
yes,
So on
So the
the,
total would be 6,500?
6,500.
We're
so
never gonna get
on,
that.
I doubt it. But on the matter of $1,500 for a survey and possibly other activity, is there a second?
I'll second
Yeah, I'll
that.
second it.
All those in favor? It's unanimous. Okay, so now the matter of the 5,000 additional for possible costs.
Would you
and-
be interested in amending that to go to 35, so that the total amount that the extra budget would be 5,000?
Sure, yes.
I mean, I think that's,
would accept
it's
that
more
amendment.
realistic than 65, and I don't think they'll give it to us anyway, but yeah.
Okay.
So,
Because,
please.
yeah, they're gonna look at the total, they're not gonna care about the.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so, is,
It just means my
so-
budget's gonna go up 10 grand this year.
what's going up, Tim?
My budget just went,
Oh.
But like I say, there's somebody on the budget
So,
committee.
so Rich, you're,
Yes.
you're
I
moving.
will accept that amendment to 3,500.
Okay, so is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second, so all those in favor?
Okay,
Why not, we can always ask, right?
yeah.
well, that's right, and the select board, and the budget committee, and then the legislative body will decide,
Right.
then, so,
All right,
thank you.
you're welcome, thank you. What else? Okay, so, oh, yeah,
I saw that Hebe had some things she wanted to add to the future meeting
Right.
agendas, and I was just curious if that had been discussed the last
We-
meeting, and.
we discussed it briefly earlier, and my thoughts are that it would make sense, Hebe obviously is out tonight, but when she's back, that she talk to us about it, and I mean, they all sound like worthy things to consider, but let her tell us what she's thinking. Is that,
So EV charging, storage units, and is there another one?
Short-term rentals.
short-term rentals?
Yeah, I was interested to hear it, where in the paper, it said that 70% of the housing in Hanover is rental. It's amazing.
Well, there's a lot of people who rent, you know.
For students, right?
Yeah,
But it was
it's
just
not all
amazing.
short-term.
It was just interesting to read that 70% is rent, all the housing in Hanover.
I was hoping that we could at some point maybe talk about this program that Vermont is looking at, I think, some bike lanes and the possible interconnectivity of Lyme, and re-looking at a pedestrian crossing on the new bridge, and whether that's appropriate for the planning board to.
I mean, I'm just, yeah, I mean, that's, are you adding that to?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Which new bridge?
The East Suffolk Bridge.
Oh, that, I
So,
think that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
Well, the ship has sailed for what they are building now, but one of the tokens that the New Hampshire DOT threw out was that, you know, maybe a separate structure or something could be
Really?
added, you know. and-
Well, the route to that is somebody serving on the Transportation Advisory Committee, and I don't know if Lyme has a representative that serves on that group.
Mhm.
And then you talk it up and get this, you know, a high level of scoring so that it can get into our TAC, you know, what they wanna have in the 10-year plan.
Right, and they're doing the 10-year, they're having hearings, you know,
Right.
the next month or two for the 10-year TAC.
So are you saying that
that's-
it's unlikely to get off the ground unless we have a representative.
That's the only way
It's
to
the only way.
get, that's the only way to get
So-
into that funding mechanism.
So who
Unless
wants
we-
to be a representative?
Well, I think the select board need to appoint, it's just, you
Oh.
can't just like, oh, I wanna be the representative.
Oh.
And I don't know if Lyme, I mean, who are our RPC, is Bill Malcolm
Bill
still?
Malcolm,
And does he serve on like the TAC, or do you know that?
I don't know what he is on.
Cause, I mean, you know, there's, if you want federal funding that comes through the state, you need to be at that table. And you have a waiting period, you know, till your project comes up for funding. And it's a great project, I mean, it checks a lot of boxes, but, yeah, I mean, unless we were gonna do it ourselves here in town, pay for that.
Oh, yeah.
So it needs to
I
go
don't
through
think
the
that that's
tax.
gonna happen, but I
Yeah.
think it would be appropriate if the planning board thought it was appropriate, that we should speak up now.
Well, I
and-
think we could vote now, of course, I mean, who doesn't think it's appropriate?
Well, not,
Are you looking at
but
me?
not, it's not to be
Well, because you're a
negative, but
curmudgeon, you may vote
the
against.
state was really adamant about why they
You may
couldn't
walk
put
into bikers.
a pedestrian
Clog up your
walkway on
road.
that bridge.
Right,
I mean, they had, and I don't think there's any way they're gonna build another bridge.
you don't know.
Well, they'll say,
I mean,
there are
it's,
enough
it's
people that
something
use
that,
it,
it's,
you know.
it's not gonna happen next year, but, I mean, it's
That's
something
something to
that if
put
you
on the
don't
10-year
start
plan.
talking about it,
Yeah.
yeah,
it
you
Well,
will
I
never
thought-
happen,
Yeah,
but.
nothing happens if you don't talk about it,
yeah,
so.
no, that's true, but I'm
And
just trying to
so,
be
you know,
realistic.
maybe 10 or 15 years from now,
Yep.
we might be able to have an interconnection with Vermont.
Our great-grandchildren would say, Rich Mengy was really appreciative to think of.
We'll have a little statue there.
Yeah.
And you consider
Our
the fact
founder.
that the person who pushed to get the Thetford Bridge built originally.
Who was that?
I
The
have
covered,
no,
the covered bridge?
no, the East Thetford Bridge, somebody had
Oh, in
to,
37, well, the covered bridge was washed out, so they had to build it in 1937.
No, he's
at some point in time, you know, somebody said there ought to be a bridge here.
Right.
And so, you know, you're reaping the benefits now of that person's work.
Yeah, well, that's how, that
So,
is
yeah,
how it works.
Exactly, so.
A lot of anonymous people do a lot of really helpful
Well, there were
things.
2 covered bridges, I think, before
Right.
the steel bridge. So it was probably the early, I forget the date, but it was almost like the late 1700s, early 1800s.
I mean, somebody thought, hey, I could make a buck charging people to go across here, but that's,
Yeah.
that's how this country works.
Well, I wonder, I mean, if we could, I mean, I'm willing to say that, you know, our planning board supports that. I don't know if, you know, to get on, you know, as a viable project, I believe the select board also have to take action though. But, you know, and then find out who our representative is and let them know that it's important.
I talked to Bill Malcolm, cause he's,
Well,
Yeah, there was another person, if you told me his name, he was either on the planning board or the zoning board a few years ago.
Bill was on those.
It wasn't
board.
Bill, though.
Are you thinking of Dan Brandt?
Yes, yeah, he was on the RPC for a long
Yeah,
time.
he was the
He's
road
not-
guy.
There was somebody who was kind of the representative, when they had the meetings over in Thetford Academy a year ago or last spring before the bridge came
Wouldn't
in.
you know that, Tim, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
Um,
well, I was the representative for a while from the
Yeah.
town to in the beginning, but that was 9 years ago is when they started. So they had their first meetings here, and
Yeah.
I think in 2014 is when they had the first meetings about the bridge, so it was 9 years ago. And then it went.
So Dan would have been with you possibly.
No, he wasn't there, I don't know where.
Was it- Yeah, he
wasn't
was
there.
always involved in transportation.
Yeah,
That
for
was
some
his
reason, he
name.
wasn't there at that time.
Hmm.
Anyways.
Yeah.
So what do we wanna do with this?
What?
Does somebody wanna talk to Bill Malcolm and ask how this notion of getting a pedestrian bridge could get advanced?
I don't know. Does somebody want to do that?
I'm happy to.
Okay,
Great.
so you will talk to
Yeah.
Bill.
But I would say that does everybody support it, so we could take our
Yeah.
vote now?
Yeah.
I mean, planning board, I'll move that the planning board supports getting pedestrian and bicycle accommodations on the East Thetford Bridge.
I'll second that.
I mean, certainly I will support looking into it to say what's involved, and it
Yeah.
seems like a good idea.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, it's scary and, yeah, and someone's gonna get hurt there sometime, or because there are a lot of people who don't respect bicyclists, and,
Of course, I was told.
Well, speaking of that, Hanover's gonna have a problem now that they've really just done the thing between
What did they do?
they just repaved the section and they
Oh.
really skinnied up one of the bike lanes to make the other one wider and,
Yeah.
On the
I
bridge.
can see,
well, I think you're supposed to use the MUP on the one side, and,
yeah.
I mean.
And
and then-
I'm looking forward to seeing how that,
where
How
the
that
lines,
comes to,
where the
get to
lines
the-
go down, I know.
because I think that something bad's gonna happen, either to a pedestrian or to a bicyclist.
That's on
Well,
the-
they've already had a death on that MUP.
Yeah,
From?
A bicyclist ran into a pedestrian who.
On Route
and-
10.
Well,
No, it was on the sidewalk, on the
Yeah, yeah,
multi-use
yeah.
Up by the
path.
fire station.
Yeah,
yeah.
It was,
That
it
area.
was
Yeah.
up
By
near
Kendall.
right by
Kendall.
Kendall,
Kendall.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and, you know, and she was a biker, that's the other thing that was crazy.
The woman who was killed, yeah.
She's,
Accidents happen.
Yeah.
well,
But, you know, Carl Furstenberg told me one time, I mean, this may be beside the point, but like on the Piermont Bridge, they put a sign on they put on the side, and it's a metal grate, which they kinda have to do, cause they're not gonna plow it. So
Yeah.
Carl told me, he said, nobody on a bike is gonna ride on that, because you can't with your tires and
well,
stuff.
even,
So
even
they're
if
still
you
gonna
can
go
just
across
push
the
your
bridge.
bike, that's fine.
Yeah,
Well,
but I said they won't do
even I
that.
go across the
They won't
Orford
I
Bridge
do.
now twice a day, and they have a bike lane, signs that say
Right.
to walk your bike,
Right,
and the kids do. But
Mhm.
anybody who's got their go fast clothes,
Mhm.
they just take the lane and
Right.
go right up the bridge.
Well, honestly.
Usually with my horn blaring right behind them and me
Bikers
yelling at
have
them.
a right to take a lane and ride in the
Right.
lane. So, I have no problem with that, but I also think that when the lanes are so skinny, cause the East Thetford Bridge is small.
Yeah, it is.
And if you're in a big truck and you're on a bike going the other way, I mean, you really have to move over.
Right.
So, but, you know, even having on our East Thetford Bridge, something where you could walk your bike across would be fine with me, at least to have an alternate.
Yeah, I don't understand why they couldn't put one on that bridge. I never got a really definitive answer, cause I went up and looked at the one in Piermont, and they added that about 15 or 18 years ago.
Yeah.
They added that to, all they did was put an angle on, hold it in underneath, and they put it on. But for some reason, the state said, oh, we can't do it on this bridge, there's no way.
But you're saying
no way we're gonna
that
do
they
it.
did throw a bone towards that.
They threw a bone towards, hey, in the future,
The future is now.
something might be able
Yeah.
to be
Well, that's
done,
great.
but we're not doing it now.
Right, so
Yeah.
it wasn't a shut door.
Right.
Well, maybe they meant when there's a new bridge there. You
Yeah,
know,
when-
30 years from now, when that bridge is, and they build a whole new
Oh,
bridge.
no, we'll still be stuck having to rebuild the, find
Yeah.
a monument to the past.
I'll tell you, I still think we should be doing better for pedestrians around the common area. You know, if you try to walk from my house to the post office in the winter, when there's snowbanks, you know, I'm walking, against traffic and, you know, it's not safe.
So they had this, you were on the common committee,
Yeah, we
and
didn't
they
really
met a
talk about
bazillion times about what the issues are, and
Right,
nothing.
well, the select board don't wanna maintain anything,
Yeah.
so if there were any sidewalks put in, it would be up to the town to maintain the sidewalks. And, you know, they don't wanna do that.
The best
But
thing would
it's-
be to get bike lane to Pout Pond, to Post Pond, but I guess they tried that years back. They couldn't
Yeah,
get the-
that's,
they
I
couldn't get the
mean, my
right-of-ways.
recollection is that came up more than once, and that they tried to, basically,
They couldn't get the
they,
right of
they,
way.
they couldn't get, private property owners
Right, would be-
blocked it.
But that would be really great for the town if we could somehow get a bicycle lane
Yep.
to Post Pond.
Yep.
That would be great, cause it's
Sure.
so dangerous, I mean, well, you know, but it's
I know.
dangerous.
There's
right
actually,
there.
if you look at the topology going back behind,
Nichols.
Nichols, there's actually a valley that runs right along through there and then drops down to the backside of the pond. It would be an absolutely
But
perfect,
there's private property.
it's all private property, you'd have to
You
get,
have to buy them
figure
out.
out, buy them out, get an easement, do something
Yeah.
to get there,
Well,
but it's,
apparently, people looked into that
Yeah,
at
they
least
did.
once, I think twice, and the conditions
Yeah.
were not.
Right.
But times change, maybe maybe
Well,
third
wishful
time's a
thinking,
charm.
you know, Appalachian Trail wasn't built in a day, and, you know, to put that on paper, to say this is, you know, would be a really beneficial thing for the community. And as new property owners come up and, you know, possibly they would consider, allowing, you know, public right of way for bikes and.
Well, it'd be helpful to actually get, I don't know who or what did that, but it'd be good to know what would be available and what the missing pieces of the puzzle are.
Yeah, might have been the selectmen.
Could have been.
There was a subcommittee, like, remember
Yeah, there was a
when the
subcommittee,
Lyme
rings a
Foundation
bell.
did like visioning things,
Yeah.
and that was one of the like activities that came out as, you know, high, you know, high priority, and then I'm not sure who was you know, who looked into it, it was a committee of people.
Right.
But Upper Valley Trails Alliance, you could always hire them to do a feasibility, you know, like, is this even a good
You
idea?
need to talk to the landowners.
No, not to talk to the landowners, just to see what the alignment, the kind of best possible alignment would be.
You mean where to put it?
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
but we could figure that out.
well, no, I think that, you know,
It's not hard to.
well, you know, in terms of trying to get it so that it's, you know, moderate grades, so,
But of course, a lot of it would be probably determined on where they could put it with landowner, you know.
oh, I
who
know,
gave
but
permission.
knowing the ideal alignment, then you just let people know, you know, ideally, this is where it would go. And, you know, and hopefully there would be landowners over time that would say, okay, I'd like to have that happen.
Maybe,
I mean, instead of getting something that's not so good, and, you know, and built, cause it's gonna be expensive. I mean, the Neil Loop back behind Elaine and Francis Neal's house, the new people who live there, I don't know what their
Where's
names
that?
are.
Oh, Neil, yeah.
Yeah, there's a, you know, that, you know, the Upper Valley Trails Alliance was putting in, you know, new boardwalk and making that better. And, they did consulting, I mean, you know, about the trail design, where it should go, where it should
Well,
go.
they just did the one by Post Pond.
Pond too, yeah,
That's for, yeah, just gravel, they put gravel
Yep.
down
yep.
there. Yeah, well, it's certainly worth talking about, yeah.
So what are the things we're talking about? I found, now I forgot.
But was
The
it,
bridge,
EV charging and
EV
storage
charging.
units and I. can't
Short-term
remember.
rentals,
Short-term rentals.
Yeah,
is
well,
that like Airbnb, is that what?
yeah,
Yes,
yeah, we talked about that years back.
Yeah,
Airbnb.
yeah, we had,
Cause I got a whole list of all the ones in town.
we had a forum.
yeah, well,
Right,
it's,
And, you know, and I think at the time, we decided there's not a problem.
Right.
And so, you know, I think that's,
well, if you have a house that you're already living in and, you know, it's not a problem, but if you like work at Dowd's Country Inn and you wanna have people move into town who could, you know, be employed there, it's a problem. You know, cause there's no,
Yeah, so,
no
I
year-round
mean, like
housing,
with all of this
so-
stuff, over time, it's not a bad thing to reexamine.
Sure.
I remember at that forum, I mean, you just never know what the reaction's gonna be, but there was a great fear that we were gonna regulate regular zoning, you know, make it harder. And people showed up really in a panic about that. So the short-term rental stuff didn't really come up very much, if I recall correctly.
So say that again, we were gonna make it harder for people to rent their house?
We weren't, but
I mean, they thought.
we were having a rental forum and some people who were renting their
Oh, I thought there were
properties
more
thought
restrictions.
it was gonna be.
Well, that's what Hanover's done now,
I saw it in
so
the
the
paper, they're
rental
gonna-
housing ordinance.
It's all
yeah.
gonna be reviewed, or it's all gonna be inspected.
Well, it's gonna be inspected every 3 years,
Yeah.
rentals,
Well,
because
but there's nothing wrong, you know.
there is nothing wrong with it.
Especially in Hanover.
When you see kids sleeping
Yeah.
on kitchen floors with their clothing in stoves,
Yeah,
and, you know,
Yeah.
and plywood on top of burners, and, you know, and that's where they have their desk.
Yeah,
Because
well,
they
they're just
cram
kids.
in and,
It's good
well,
for them.
no, it's not good for
No,
them,
I'm
it's
just
really
kidding.
unsafe,
I
and
know.
kids in basements and the mold, it's not good. And, you know, our economy here is really stifled because we don't have enough housing.
Yeah, well, right, it all comes down to whoever builds it, how much money can they make?
It's true,
That's where it comes down to.
it's true. My neighbor's putting in a garage and I'm very interested to know how much their garage is costing. Because
More than they think.
oh, I'm sure it's more than they think, and I'm sure it's more than we think that a house would cost also.
Yeah.
You know, it's, do they have to give you estimated cost of construction?
Yep. I'd have to go look it up.
Right,
I don't know, it's,
well,
sometimes it's a little lower than,
yeah, yeah. Well, Hanover does that, and then we readjust based on the actual construction
Yeah, we
cost, so
don't,
they often have to pay more for their permit fees. But
Oh, Hanover does it?
Hanover gets an estimated cost of construction, which then determines what the
Which
permit
comes
fee.
from the applicant.
Right,
Yes.
and then at the end, when we get the actual cost of construction,
Right,
there's
okay.
often an adjustment, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And those fees are huge, I mean, that's what runs the planning office.
Oh, really?
Hanover,
Oh.
yeah.
Cause it's
Building
a
permits.
0.25% here?
yeah, it's 0.025% of the cost of construction.
Mhm.
In Lyme, or
Yep.
what's it in?
Oh, it's, I don't know, you can find it online very easily.
But
and,
you think it's a lot more than that?
It must be, because, I mean, we've got, 2 building inspectors and, you know, 2 planners, I don't really count anymore, and then there's a director, and we're getting the rental housing person is gonna be funded through the inspection, fees. So that's not gonna be additional costs, but,
Yeah, we're not quite there yet, but we're getting close with the inspections. You know, we're looking at having Michael Hensley do a lot more through the fire department.
So would that be a formal thing that he?
Yeah, that's, I'm talking with Aaron now about it. But, we're still probably a couple of years out before we could implement, figuring out what exactly we want to.
well, even just looking at, propane installations and that wood stoves are properly installed, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that, is pretty basic safety.
Yeah.
And, honestly, I mean, when you spend how much money you spend to have the guys come in and do the work on your house, and then, you don't know if it's actually to code or not, it kinda sucks.
Yeah, that's something I've talked to a lot of people about, there when they say, what do we do about inspections? And they say there are none, and they're like, well, how do we know our
Yeah,
building is up to code? I'm like,
Right.
yeah, that's up to you to
right. And then
hire a
you-
building inspector to,
Yeah,
Right.
that's the way it
And then
should
you
be.
don't find out until you try to sell your house, and, they have a home inspector, and it's like,
Right.
where did this come from? It's like, well, I paid a whole lot of money for that, and, yeah, so I wish that we did have that service.
Well, yeah. This is gonna be great.
Somebody's mumbling here, I can't tell what they're
well, Tim,
saying.
when you do shoddy work, I can understand you not wanting to agree.
Well, there's some of
Well,
us that don't
electrical
know
stuff is
what-
pretty much safe, cause just all the electricians, unless you get your brother-in-law to do it or something.
That's the problem.
You can get your brother-in-law, you can do your
Yeah.
own.
Oh, yeah, a lot of people.
Too, which,
Yeah, you just
And
use the
yeah, I
YouTube.
know, I have
That's
friends
right.
who
See, the other
bought a
thing-
house in a Vermont town and, did not have an inspector and, yeah, they wanted to do an addition and they found out the electrical was all
Yeah.
substandard and
Yeah.
they had to rip things out and start all over again before they could even do the project that they wanted
Yeah,
to.
but
do.
that's.
So when you're buying in a community that doesn't have inspection, it can be, buyer beware.
Yeah,
That's right, yeah, of course,
you won't buy my house,
homeowners insurance.
I'll fix that in a little while.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much they inspect now, like stoves and all that stuff. Your insurance, your homeowner's insurance, they really inspect.
my people never come.
I've never had my
Never,
insurance company,
no.
That's interesting,
Never.
cause most people I talk to, they come and they check.
Never, I mean, if you have a claim, yes, after the house burns down, or you have your
And they
chimney
try to get out
fire,
of it, right?
but not before, never.
Actually, they did come when I first put it up, because I had a temporary set of stairs they were unhappy with.
Mhm.
Yeah, I bet.
But they're just temporary.
No, they were actually, because by the time they,
Good for the next 5
in
minutes.
the time from when they inspected to the time they called me, I had already,
Oh, that's
okay.
pretty
Re-
temporary.
yeah, I had already replaced it, so it was, I didn't want them.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
So,
So,
is there any other business
No, I don't think so.
that we?
I know, but this is the preamble to something I can predict, but I'll leave the suspense out. Yes, please continue.
Mr. Chair, would you entertain a motion to adjourn?
Not only will I entertain it, I will, I don't know, I'll leave it at that.
Second it,
Yeah,
you want it.
I'll second it, yeah. All right, it looks like we're, thank you, everybody, thank you, everybody.
Recording stopped.
so next meeting, we're gonna go over.
We're gonna do the
survey.
numbers,
I'm gonna be compiling data.
so that will